All right, welcome to The Struggle is Not Real. This is our the music wants to play again. Hold on, I gotta stop that. All right,
I
there
love
we
that
go.
music.
I know you love the music. Michael Lennington, Kristen Tabbert, our final Struggle is Not Real show for this season. You know, we might come back. I think of everything that we've ever done together, like having a defined season for this thing, I think was the best thing we possibly could have done.
Agreed.
Because it always gets to the point where it's like gets kind of weird at the end, I guess. I don't know. So
Well, we are
weird. All the
I don't
way
know what we're gonna
through.
talk about.
That weird stream kind of goes through the whole thing.
Yeah, I guess so. So this is a very, and I started to prepare my historical background for this one, and I was like, really, what needs to happen is Kristen needs to talk about this concept and how she came up with it, and the roots of what this. Look at you smoking your cigar, rubbing it in. All right, I hope your insurance agency sees you smoking on a cigar. All right, here we go. So Kristen, today's episode, this is the finale for this season. The problem's not the problem, and then, of course, the tagline would be, "It's how you look at the problem." Give us a little background. Like I remember we were driving down to Nashville, and you were so excited to kind of share this whole thing about uncovering this. So give us a little background on this.
Well, it's all about how we think about things. It's the mental models that we get stuck in. So there's a lot of scientific jargon I could throw out, but basically, we have biased thinking. And when your thinking revolves around symptoms that's happening in your business, the market's slow, the interest rates are high, the inventory, this, I can play chess games all day long on the computer, but when I go into tournament play, I lose. So I need to have bigger, better skills. So you tell yourself, you know exactly what the problem is. And once you've identified what the problem is, you start to go to how to solve it. But what if the problem isn't the problem? The problem's how you're thinking about the problem. And so when you start to ask those different questions, your business isn't slow because the market's slow or because you can't control any of that. Everything happens because of the actions that you're taking or you're not taking. And the actions that you're taking or you're not taking are all about how you think about those actions. So we get comfortable. We do the same things over and over again. So even our thinking, well, if the market's doing this, I've been in a situation where the market's done that before. I'll go back and do what I did in that market. But the problem is that market, even though it has similar situations, it's not the same market. So therefore, you can't do the same things and expect to get the results you want to get. So you have to think differently about the problem. You have to re-identify the problem, if you will. You have to figure out what the real problem is, not the symptom that you're focusing on and fixing in the moment.
There's things like that get in the way, I think, so much of this too. So like the one thing that I think is really interesting is, people talk about real estate like, oh, well, when it's a normal market. Well, I've been a real estate agent since 2006, and I'm not exactly sure what a normal market is or if I've ever actually been in what they would call a normal market, because to me, it doesn't exist. And so even the idea that normal exists in some ways will hinder our thinking, because if normal exists and there's a normal way to solve a problem, versus what I think you're saying is that we correctly identify what the problem is, and then we look at the action. And Michael, what I love about the 12-week year is that it gives you this ability in short cycle execution. It gives you this ability to adjust your strategies depending on what the conditions are. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I like to talk about the 12-week year as kind of a learning system as much as it's an execution system. And I think that when you know the things that you need to do to hit your goal, you give it your best thoughts. You'll never create a perfect plan. It's always going to be a plan that's just based upon your assumptions, and they're not always right. As Kristen said, some of your thinking's off. And but the thing about the marketplace is it's going to tell you what works and what doesn't work. And so it's a great place for you to test your ideas and learn. And so you give it your best thought in terms of what you need to do. You ask the right questions. You do the research you need to do. But when you lay out the tactics, you execute them, and then you execute your way to a better plan, because the tactics are going to either be fruitful or not. And if they're not fruitful, adjusting quickly and identifying new ways of getting done what you need to get done helps you to hit your goals. And so your thinking is always wrong, right? That's my thought is that you're not always wrong, but you always have wrong thinking. Is the belief that your beliefs are true? You will always believe they're all true, but not all of them are true. So you kind of bump into those false beliefs that you can execute your way out of. And I know that's more than what you were asking about, but that's what I was thinking as you were asking that question. Is that your execution helps you learn, and then you change your thinking.
It does, because if back to the phrase, the problem's not the problem, is how you're thinking about the problem. So if you don't know what the root cause of the issue is going on, you will create a plan that is not going to solve what the real problem is. It may put a Band-Aid on it, but that's also the beauty of the 12-week year. We're not spending a ton of time trying to figure it out. If we lay out that plan and we say, well, here's the symptom, and if we do these things, it'll fix the problem, we see it's not doing it, then we adapt much more quickly on the fly.
I can give a real world example of something that's going on in our world if you would like for me to do that.
I would love that.
So the problem's not the problem, it's how we look at the problem. I joke all the time that I'm going to fire my wife, that we need to fire my wife. And the reality is when I say that is my wife is on our part of our real estate business. She's not just part of it. She is the all-star. She is the rock star. She is the, our top agent. She, without question. And but she doesn't get paid on commission. She gets paid a salary, and a lot of what she makes off commission actually goes to support the brokerage. And so I've been thinking about we got to get the brokerage to this level so that we can get her off salary and put her back on commission. And now I'm like, no, that's backwards thinking. I need to put her on commission and then grow the brokerage within the parameters of what is there. And that is, it's one of those things that, okay, well, once you've already taken those wrong steps trying to chase something that you probably are never really going to get to, it changes the whole dynamic and the whole perspective. But in some ways it's no, this is definitely the step that you got to take. And you smiled at me like you've been waiting for me to get to that reality for a long time. So
how long have I known you?
A while.
And Mike, what's the 7 deadliest words in real estate right now?
The 7 deadliest? Wait till the market gets better. I don't know. Is that what it is?
This is how we've always done it.
Oh, this is how we've always I would say both these phrases would be.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah.
So this is how we've always done it, or wait till the market gets better. Yes.
But here's the beautiful thing. It doesn't matter how long it took you to come to this realization, you come to the realization now. So you've been treating the symptom, and the real problem hasn't been going away. You've realized it's something much deeper. And so you flip the narrative, you flip the tactics, you run with it, and you see what happens.
Yes, totally agree. So that's what we're in the middle of. And then it gives you clarity, I think, on to use something that we used to say all the time is what's important now, right? So that when you do correctly identify the problem, then you have the ability to say, okay, well, what's important now for us to go after and fix the problem.
Yeah, and if you continue to just look at what you think are symptomatic instead of thinking it's the real problem, it creates a ripple effect of other things as well, right? You're putting a Band-Aid on temporary solutions. And what may fix that solution in the moment ends up creating a bigger problem over here or a bigger symptom, not a problem. So you go put a Band-Aid on that symptom, and then pretty soon you have no idea where you've got completely off the rails or how to even come back to center again.
You're smiling too. What do you have for us, Michael?
I just said she made up a new word there. I like to smile when she does that.
What was the word I made up?
Completely.
I didn't know that was just trying to get 2 words at the same time out.
I was going to call that out. I was just smiling.
I was being more efficient. I'm combining words to be more efficient.
Yeah, there you go. So, Michael, then it really does begin with our thinking. As we always know, we want to change our results, we got to change our thinking. And so the thinking process of when a problem presents itself, how do I take it deeper? What do I do to make sure that I am actually going after the right problem? So let's just say, the problem being you're a business owner and you can't make payroll the next pay period.
Well, that's a problem. That's a
right.
Real problem. Right.
Yes, but it's symptomatic of that's not the problem. It's an outcome of how you've been addressing symptoms
Is
of
a
a much
symptom. It's a
problem.
symptom of a much bigger problem. Yeah, probably. So I had an answer all set until you said that one, because that's there. The problem with that problem is there's a lot of emotional ties to the people that are counting on you, all of that stuff. And so that's one where there's a lot of
The problem with that problem is that it's real. Like that's, I
yeah,
mean,
well,
that,
it's real, but it's not just you. And I find that
yeah,
the problems that I got that I can work on, I'm a lot less stressed out about than if people are relying on me to do something so they can eat next month.
yeah.
And so because there's so much obligation there, and the temptation is to for some, not everybody, but for some is to sacrifice a lot yourself and enable them to keep going. And I think that emotional piece really can cloud the right decision making process in
Ooh,
that whole
okay,
thing,
that's good.
you know. And it's different for every situation, but sometimes, and this is not going to be the exciting answer, but sometimes it's time to move on from something,
Mm-hmm.
and not to continue to pretend that it's going to get better, or to really dig into your thinking. Because one of the things that we talk to people about, and Kristen, this is what she does. So this is the better person for this is Kristen, but all of our beliefs that we hold are there because something in our past we've learned something, somebody told us something, or we've created these combinations of thoughts, but we can't keep them all in conscious memory, and they just kind of sit in the background. And all of our behaviors are driven by our thinking, and the things that we're blind to, other people can see. And so I think one of the best things to do when you're facing a situation like that is seek counsel, because you're nose blind to those thoughts, right? I know I'm missing metaphors in a lot, but you're blind to them. And until somebody can kind of come up alongside you and say, hey, here's what you're missing. And I'm thinking of a friend of ours who had a bunch of his team walk out a couple of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and how he used counsel to talk about what to do differently. And I think that's what you do.
Yeah, going back to that situation, actually, he was going to take us. He was going to take one step, and after seeking counsel, took a different step.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's exactly right, because when you get a problem and you take it for its face value, lots of times you're going to make that emotional wrong first step, and every time you make an emotional wrong first step, that makes it even harder to backtrack to get back on the right steps, right? So, I totally agree. I would say he's in a much better spot right now.
Oh yeah,
So,
the life is good right now.
life is really good. Life is really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So
but to elaborate a little bit more on that too, is you talked about the emotional component, Michael. It's really critical that, especially when you are seeking that wise counsel from other people, they don't have the emotional investment into it like we do when we're in it. And so you need to be able to be with somebody that you can trust, that can say, we need to take the emotion out of it, or question what the tie to that emotion is, why it's so big or visceral, whatever that emotion be.
That's so strong. And, it made me think, as you were saying that, Chris, I just want to add a real quick thought to that, is that this particular person has invested in relationships for years. And so when he needed to lean on people, they were there for him, and he could trust them. And it wasn't that they were going to be right, because some of us weren't that sharp, but it's in lots of voices, you can pick up the truth. And I think really, that ability is heightened when you've got long-term friends. And I think that way you can trust them. Because for me, if I'm in a bad situation and I don't trust the person because I have no history with them and they give me advice, it's even harder for me to take their advice, right? It's like, now I've got another thing to worry about and think about. Is that the right thing? I don't know. But you can avoid these problems if you invest in other people and have those kind of relationships to help you think through problems, who know you and you trust.
All right, but you also made it sound like the problems you were talking about don't have emotion tied to them. I'm just trying to think, how many problems do I actually have that don't have the emotion tied to it?
Oh no, I'm not saying they don't have.
Not you.
Oh,
me,
him.
I said it.
Boomer did.
For me, okay, that's just for me. If somebody else is going to be hurt by something I've done, or that I haven't done, or that the market's going to do, I tend to be more worried about their experience than mine. And so when that happens, I can suffer if I have to, but I don't want to have other people have to suffer. Does that make sense? So I tend to that's the only reason I said that. It may not be any more heightened emotional problem if for other people. It just is for me.
Sure. So then what were you going to answer then when I asked the question before I gave you the
Boy,
when you were
you're asking me to use my memory now, which is a feature it's no longer functioning as well as it used to. So but yeah, I was thinking that so your basic premise was that you've got a problem and you got to deal with it, and it's arisen. And generally I dig into my thinking, but again, even in that situation, I'm going to look for counsel because I'm blind to my own thinking, and I'm blind to the thinking that got me into the situation that I'm in. And I just hearing other people talk to me about what they see, it just helps. It calms me down, number one. So I'm not going to make a stupid mistake. And number two, it just lets me make faster decisions.
And I think you're exactly right. Like, I think that's the key first step. If a problem arises that you're trying to figure out, instead of just sitting at your desk and trying to figure it out yourself, is to actually like start talking to people about it. Because these perspectives that you're like completely, we talk about, in the horse racing world where a horse wears blinders, right?
Yes.
And your tunnel vision wearing those blinders and only can see what is going on in front of you, where the other perspective is seeing everything around you, right? And it is so invaluable for someone who is unemotionally attached, who can just give you a complete perspective, and especially when you're going to start hearing things pop up over and over and over again. It gives you the idea of where the problem really lies.
Mhm.
And,
that analogy is pretty good because you actually is somebody who can see the whole field with the horse, right?
mm-hmm.
It's the rider, and so you got to trust the rider to keep you from And
it's not even the rider though. I think it's the track announcer up in the
yeah, true.
So
Because you can hear that. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think like if we go back to even the Preakness race that just ran, we probably all saw the collision that was getting ready to happen at the top of the stretch when those three horses squeezed each other before it even happened. But those, this one guy just said, "Hey, I got a hole here. Maybe I can go squeeze this. I can go do this." I don't know.
His perspective may have just been slightly off, or
Right.
his emotional response to wanting something so badly, he was willing to take any kind of risk to make it happen, hoping those other horses would have moved out of the way because there's so many complex perspectives to this.
Okay, let's take this analogy a little bit further. I'm going to go back to basketball, but in basketball, I think it's going to be a little bit more. You have the player who's in the moment doing his thing. You got the coach who's on the sideline, but still in close proximity. And then if you ever notice, like when a bunch of coaches go to scout an opponent, they don't sit courtside. They go sit up in they get very high to get a complete and total perspective.
Yes.
Right. So like when you have, anytime there's a scouting report or whatever else, when you're trying to figure out what's really going on. And I think that this multi-level idea is like the player is in it. The player's got a very limited scope. In some ways, the player can't even see the entire 4 players in front of him. Right. They might miss a guy in the corner or whatever else. The coach has got a little bit of a broader perspective, but it's still, everything's happening very fast and very close proximity to in front of where he is, versus the person who's up and looking at the entire scope of how both teams are interacting with each other. I think there's something there. This might be our next book, Kristen, that we could write together. So I mean,
yeah,
huh? Yeah, listen, you're already a best-selling author. Kristen and I are trying to get there next. So there might be something to that, like understanding those 3 different perspectives and how they interplay with each other.
Yeah. I was shaking my head in the beginning because you were talking about advanced scouting, I thought that was going in a certain direction.
To your point, Mike, I mean, that's just one avenue of what I do.
Yeah.
I don't have that big up high level all the time unless somebody actually gives me access to that and I'm moving around. But it's a perspective that I bring to the game that lets me ask those, well, what if, and without asking what if, people come to the table wanting to know how I'm going to do this. I can't tell them how. I can't tell you how to be a realtor. I can't tell you how to shift Chrissy from salary to commission. But what I can say is, what if, the first question should have been, what if we do that? And then what if we apply these, there's another word I mixed up, apply these tactics to get to the finish line faster? Then we ask the who question, not how yet, but who. Who's that person that's up here, over here, that can see something here we cannot? And we start folding all those pieces together to get a 3D 360 view on all of this.
Yeah. And some of those people might be on your team because they're seeing a different perspective of what's going on. And so asking your people, sometimes leaders have a hard time doing that, I think, is really kind of getting the knowledge that their team has. And
well, the leaders, I think, have an issue of sometimes being vulnerable, right? You don't want to be seen weak as a leader.
Right.
And then having the group of people around you that you can feel vulnerable around. I mean, obviously, you guys know that I do that on a regular basis with a group of guys that I have that are very close to me. Right. And and we talked about that yesterday because in our group of guys, just because we're all going through different things. And how this group is there for each other, even though we're going through 5 uniquely different experiences, but that it starts with the ability to be, you gotta be vulnerable, and you gotta be open to receiving the feedback that someone's going to give you.
Yep.
Instead of just taking the feedback and saying, no, you're wrong, you don't understand. Like, the second those words come out of your mouth of, oh, well, you don't really understand what's going on here. It's probably the fact that you don't understand what's really going on here.
But they'll stop talking. They'll stop telling you what they think.
Yeah, right.
I had a conversation with somebody today, and we were identifying what we thought the problem to be. And I asked the what if question, and they said, that's not how I see it.
Oh.
Well, of course not. And now you've just limited where the conversations and the possibilities that are going to go from this. Well, okay, how do you see it then? That's the first question I ask. Okay, what if you changed your perspective? What if you took those glasses off and put on different glasses? What if your glasses are only allowing you to see nearsighted and we need to see farsighted?
And what was their response? Did they fight you or did they embrace it?
Really none of either. It was, that's interesting, I need to think about it kind of thing.
The wishy-washiness, so it's get you squashing the bug. What do they say? You either gotta cross the road or stay on the one side or cross the road. But if you do just kind of, that was Mr. Miyagi, right? Mr. Miyagi was in the Karate Kid, was talking about, you get squashed like grape if you don't commit. You got to commit to being on one side of the road or the other.
And commitment is all or nothing. There's no in between.
So if I looked at a problem and I committed to a solution, but I didn't see the problem as the problem, now what do I do if I've already committed to the wrong solution?
Well, if we are looking in short cycle executions, which that's one of the things, your problem is if you're not using an execution system that can help identify breakdowns sooner, that's the first problem you need to solve. Yeah. But it's the data. It's the data that we're getting from this. If we're not getting the results we want to get, then we need to look at it, because temporary solutions create other unintended consequences. So if we're seeing other consequences popping up, we have to ask ourselves why, because that wasn't happening before. I'm still not solving the problem. Now here's this other problem. So we have to go back and look at it again.
I love it. This whole show, though, is based off this premise. The struggle's not real, right? Mm-hmm. We wanted to put all these different topics out there that are little sayings, little quips that everyone's heard before. And we wanted to break down, like, hey, no, like, let's change our perspective here. And I know we talked about this last week too, but I think it bears repeating. This is one of the reasons why when we look at tactics that we can do to help us get the solution, we ask you to get creative and try to think of the most off-the-wall things that you could ever do, because we're trying to break you out of the prison of your thoughts, break you out of the thinking of your thoughts. Someone has got to be there for you to help expand your thinking process. Your limiting beliefs are what's limiting you, right? So, like, if you can't if you can't start looking at things from a different perspective and getting creative about the problem solving and getting creative about the solutions, you're going to just be very limited on what you can do unless you're very fortunate and you got the right path and the right answers and all that stuff right off the bat. But I think most people have made a lot of mistakes and have a lot of people that they trust telling them, hey, this is what you're doing and this isn't going to work. And, and there's a balance there too. Like there's people who are saying it's not going to work to protect you and they're trying to help to keep you small. But the people who are trying to help you go big, it'll be pretty obvious when they give you the instructions.
And they'll give you feedback that's not going to inflate your ego or make you feel good about yourself. They're going to give you feedback that may hurt your feelings. It may derail you and say, maybe I'm not on the right path. Maybe I shouldn't be following this. But they're considerations that help you get to those right answers.
I love it. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I really, this series of shows has been great. Michael, do you have some parting words?
Strangely, no. It's been awesome. I've really enjoyed this. I like talking to you guys, and it's fun. I always learn from both of you whenever we do this. So it's been fun.
And if I had to guess, Kristen, I would imagine we'll take a little bit of a break until we kind of come up with what we want to do for the next season.
We do.
We will be back.
I'm going to throw out an idea and kind of do a soft,
do on the air?
Soft call to action. Yeah. So, we have a following. So reach out to us. Tell us what you want to hear from us, because we get conversations from people offline all the time. Hey, can you help me with this? What do you think about that? So bring those ideas to the table. If you're thinking about those things, I guarantee you other people are thinking about those things. Let's put our heads together and solve it together. Let's come up with ideas. Give us an idea about what a next season podcast would look like. Because I really want to do this again.
Absolutely.
Help us do it.
All right, guys, enjoy your time without us. I guess, I don't know if that's really a thing. Well, and we will be back in, I'm sure, a short amount of time. Take care and thank you for listening.